Whoa, 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 welcome back. Hey, the chat's already in here. I usually say, come on in, chat, and you're already here. What? Hey, looks like I'm on time as well for my own show. Look at that. He's on time. What? When does that ever happen? That's crazy. Holy cow. Welcome back. What another amazing week here in Kanakistan. Well, we watch everything go crazy around all of us. We're bringing things back. We are bringing things back, but in the meantime, we're watching the show. It's just crazy. It's crazy to see. And I've got some exciting stuff happening in the background and going on, and I can't wait to give an official announcement to some of this stuff that's happening, but things are good. And I really want to emphasize that things are good. They are going great. Things have never been better, and people are excited. People are getting excited. Let's just say right around the end of June in the capital of British Columbia, perhaps we might be doing another little meetup. It might be a fun one, an even bigger one than the last one. I think it could be good. I think it could be good, and I hope that anybody who can will make it. So start making plans for right around that time of year. Come on out to beautiful British Columbia. We're gonna go to the wokest place on earth, and we're gonna bring some attention to some real awesome stuff. A lot of people organizing and getting together, and this is what this is all about. This is about bringing people together and getting things happening. I'm so excited. I wish I could tell you more, but this is all stuff that's going to be coming soon enough. In fact, I can't wait to take the commie boat. I just keep calling it the commie boat. A lovely couple that I met at a recent event. I don't know if I should say their names, but they remembered that I called it the commie boat, and they brought me one. They got a commie boat for me, the action figure. And it does the thing. I absolutely love stuff like this. Thank you all so much for just how amazing this whole community has become. It's just it just gets more and more exciting all the time. Thank you, everybody, for everything that you're doing. It's, the commie horn. That's right, on the commie boat. It really gets things going. Sorry, I couldn't help but laugh. I was cracking up the whole time on my video this morning. It's just some of the stuff has just gotten so ridiculous, but it's great when they go over the top with this stuff. It's amazing because it reels so many people back to sanity, to reality, to the real situation we should be in. Dixon Ciderbush, I should always make sure to remember separating those words when I announce that. Gifting 10 memberships to the channel. Thank you so much. Very generous of you. And of course, everybody in the chat that just got gifted a membership, get in there and give Dixon a good thank you, Mr. Ciderbush. Thank you so much. Get in there and give him a thanks. It's great. It's great to be doing this again. I love it. Everybody, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps with the algorithmic goodness. What it does, really, at the end of the day, is it tells Google and Google's AIs and algorithms. We're going to be talking about some of the Google AI stuff today, but it tells the algorithm what you like. And this is the thing, they're collecting your data, whether you like it or not. You have a profile and you have a lot of things that you like to watch, and so does everybody else. And other people that are really into freedom-oriented stuff, talking about liberty and all of this stuff, they'll get recommended this content if you hit that like button. It really helps out the channel, so please, thank you. And let's go. Trish Prue with the $2 super chat. I'm a British Columbian from Kanakistan, lol. Be careful, you might offend some people in telling them that you're British Columbian. G Meister, member for 20 months, says, hit the damn like button and read your texts, Clyde. I did. Did you notice you have a little wrench next to your name now? Yeah, that's you, my man. You are now the moderator inside the chat, or one of the moderators inside the chat. I remembered to do it this time just before going live, so thank you very much for that, my man. let's get into some of this stuff. I'm really just dumbfounded by some of the news that's out there. But this was a thing. I didn't know whether I should make a video about this, but I remember just before going live, and I wanted to show the video because I mean it's a little here or there. You know, we all have friends that can be a little outspoken, you know, in their ways, and it's funny and it's not criminal in any way. And this is why it was kind of astonishing, because the police were called on this individual. And well, let's just roll a video because it's just insane. So the cops rock up. I think I could keep the chat up because it shows enough of the video on this. The cops rock up to this guy's house. Why? Because he said some stuff on the internet about Chrystia Freeland. I guess maybe it takes a second to get into the video. Where okay, here comes the cops.
Talking, and then you guys got guns. I don't care what color you guys are, no racism, but you guys have guns, and you guys are the cops.
Hey,
yeah, we have issues.
About what? About what?
You John?
What does it matter if I am?
Well, just want to talk to you for a second. Is that okay?
For what? What did I do that's
Just
so...
want to talk to you, buddy.
Hey, that's fine. I just, because of your daughter here, I just want to, it's private. But if you don't mind, I can go ahead and speak while she's there.
Come on, honey.
Give a
I'm sorry,
shit,
guys.
really, honestly.
John, I'm just here to get everybody upset, okay?
Just a word of advice for anybody: if you get approached by the police, keep the swears to a minimum. I don't know, cordial. Just be cordial. I mean, they're attending a call because they got called out to it. Half the time they don't want a confrontation. I don't think that's the situation, but they're being sent out for it. You're right. Intimidation tactics. That's what it's about. But they're just pawns in this whole thing. You don't have to be rude to them, or just keep the swears out of it.
Did you call the Deputy Prime Minister's office?
It took three cops for this. Incredible.
Chrystia Freeland. Did you call her?
Why would I call her?
Okay. Are you John?
So that was it. Did you call the Deputy Prime Minister's office? And he says, "Why would I call her?" And then it continues.
Okay. So we have a voicemail.
Okay.
From her phone that has a message from you. Okay, talking about how you're angry because of all the prices being raised, and that was yesterday. So we're just here, can you
Okay, so what, am I being arrested?
No, I'm not being arrested.
So why am I even bothering talking to you, fucking moron?
Okay. Again. Oh, it's funny though. It really is just funny. Why am I even bothered talking to you guys if I'm not under arrest for it? Of course, the police were sent out to this guy's location to give him a warning for having called the Deputy Prime Minister's voicemail and leaving a message saying he's upset at the prices of everything going up, and it's obviously because of the Trudeau government, and she's the finance minister. It's kind of her purview to make sure or see how much money the federal government is spending. But it cracks me up that this is what it came to. Anyway, they came. They were pretty cordial, but obviously it's really kind of a stupid request being asked of them to show up. And then, of course, the guy is pretty outspoken, let's just say, about the whole endeavor.
Laws and human rights. And the street attitudes. It's disgusting.
And then you guys can fuck right off.
It's like, man, my freaking bank account got shit over with this crap. To find out it's illegal. It's illegal.
These guys are fucking supporting it and fucking coming here.
Sorry, don't like them.
Well, you should be at her fucking office, fucking charging her with fucking treason.
Right?
Good. Go fucking charge that cunt with treason, because she's a fucking treasonous goat.
I don't know if that's gonna hurt tonight's stream just for all those words, all the swears. But that's goof. I'm sorry, I had to share that because it was just insane. Now, I wanted to find out more information about the story, so I actually you type in police visit man Chrystia Freeland, and It turns out she does this a lot. Actually, it's really hard to find this story because it's so frequent that people are sent to the police are sent to people's addresses over voicemails that are left or letters that are written or things like that. It just seems to be a very common occurrence. So yeah, if you don't want the police showing up at your house, I'd avoid calling Chrystia Freeland's office with and verbally accosting her for the terrible job that she's been doing. Do yourself a favor, make a YouTube channel and talk about the terrible job that she's been doing. At least the police won't visit your home. They haven't at least visited mine at all in the duration of the past couple of years over this whole thing. Unbelievable. Love the way it's been going. But let's talk about things that are in the news. One story caught my eye recently, and that was this one. I just love these stories coming out of the wokiest of woke places, Metro Vancouver, of course. I'm not that far from there. It's a different world when you get there. But yeah, Tranada, apparently. Metro Vancouver Transit Police say they don't know whether a sexual assault suspect is male or female, despite having semen evidence. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's where we're at with this. So here's the story. Like, what do you even think about this? I'm calling right now. Don't do it. Don't call Chrystia Freeland. It won't work out for you. Canada, Metro Vancouver Transit Police say they don't know whether sexual assault suspect is a male or a female, despite having semen evidence of the crime. They have the evidence that this is what happened. Anyway, the Metro Vancouver Police say they don't know if the primary suspect on the SkyTrain sexual assault is male or female, despite having recovered semen during the investigation. On February 8th, Transit Police issued a press release. I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring the chat back because there's a really important thing. I like people to be able to see the chat on the video because you don't know if YouTube dismisses your chats. It happens. You leave a chat and then it looks like on your end that it went up, but it doesn't go up. It is a thing. But yeah, they issued a press release pleading for help to identify the suspect. I mean, and they're not allowed to give descriptions. I'm assuming. Yeah. Yeah. Chat, give a description. Give a description of what you think the police description ought to be for that. Interesting one. While photos and videos showed what appeared to be a male with long hair, some basic information on the suspect was curiously omitted from the release. No pronouns were used and no information on the suspect's sex was included. In the recorded phone call with journalist Amy Ham, Constable Amanda Steed said the information had been intentionally left out because the transit police were unsure of how to refer to the suspect. I mean, you're talking about someone who committed a heinous crime, and we have to respect them. We have to respect. Is this something? Are we really going this far? It's actually crazy because some of this woke stuff is actually finding its way all the way in Japan right now. Now, my wife was telling me a story today that there's all these new forms of harassment that people are cry-bullying over in Japan. This is happening. They actually have gotten so far now that you won't even believe me if I told you this. But punctuation in Japanese, often instead of a period, you'll use a circle. It's a circle. They say maru. And it's gotten so to the point that now people are claiming that if you just put regular punctuation at the end of your sentence, instead of using emojis or emoticons to indicate your emotional feeling at the end of your sentence, people are actually saying that it's a form of harassment to not indicate your emotional status. And they're calling it Maruhara, which is like the circle harassment. The harassment of the circle. And Japan is not liking it, and it's being imported over there, and I don't want to see that, because Japan is often so based on so many situations that we can't allow this. We can't allow Japan to go woke. It just no. It's one of our last bastions of freedom in the world. It's terrible. Yeah, Yuji with the maru. Yeah, Maruhara is like the new thing. Circle harassment. Unbelievable. But yeah, this is the world we live in, where you cannot even say what you're seeing with your eyes, right? You're not allowed to say it, because that would be awful for somebody. It would hurt somebody's precious feelings. And I care about people's feelings. I genuinely do. I don't want to upset people for no reason, just innocuously. But this is the thing. You have to risk being offensive sometimes if you want to get your point across. Yeah. I see what you're saying there. I see what you're doing. Hate speech, violence. Make circles straight again. Come on. What are you doing? Made you look. Oh, yeah, the circle game. But you have to risk being offensive to people sometimes. It's what you do. Now, what if we were offended by all the things that they do? I'm offended that people are adopting this BS. I'm offended by it. It is offensive. It really is offensive. So I'm speaking my mind about it, but I'm not going to cry bully anybody over it. Like, really, we're going to have to really come to grips with this, and people are going to have to start just learning how to cope, because these things are actually turning around. I got a story here. This is from a while back. But what level of hate lives inside a human's heart? Says Salmon Arm people, some people in Salmon Arm, when the rainbow crosswalk was targeted by a burnout. And this is the thing. When you step on toes, people step back. And I don't mean step back. A lot of people step back, but you'll get some people stepping back on your toes, and that's what's just bound to happen when you be so pushy and you push your ideology on other people. Angela Cardoso for the 279 super chat. Thank you so much. This woke nonsense is seriously out of control. It really, really is. But this is great because we're starting to reel it back. I love seeing it go to the point of ridiculousness. So blatantly ridiculous that everybody clues in. It's great. And it's helpful to help them get to that point. And this is why this is why we fight back. This is why we fight back. And this is why we do things like the million person march. Was it in the summer? I think it was last summer. No, sorry, it was in September. It was still warm out here, but the million person march, fantastic. Great to have so many people come out for an event like that. And this is what's waking people up. They're waking people up. So what happens? That march happened, and so many of the ones that are ideologically possessed, they came out and they doubled down on all of this stuff. Doubling down is what they do. And when they double down, that's when it gets really ridiculous. And, opened my eyes because in a same week, the preschool in my neighborhood decided to put up their brand new big flag in solidarity against the people that were protesting at that thing. They actually said that that's what it was for. Shut up, you dang British Columbian. Yeah, we can't say that. We're going to get into that. But this is the thing. When that went up, I was immediately like, wow, okay, you showed your cards. You want to bring that stuff to preschool? Like, is it really that important for you that you bring it to a preschool? And of course, my son won't be going there. We're going to be sending him somewhere else, even though it's convenient. It's right there. No thanks. No thanks. We are going to be going elsewhere with our business because that's what you do. You stick to your guns on this stuff, and people have been sticking to their guns all over the place. This is hilarious. You could just type in Rainbow Crossing burnout on Google and you'll get a lot of instances of this. People are just done with it. And it's dumb because it's an innocuous thing like a Rainbow Crossing. Actually, the kids all love it. And that's kind of the awful thing about it is because kids love rainbows so much that it becomes kind of dirty that they want to have this sexual thing as a thing that kids love. But that's where things get really weird. Trish Prue, the $5 super chat. So you can't hold the horses, guys. All right, let me get to these. Yeah, Trish Prue, the $5 super chat. So you can't leave a strip of rubber on a Pride sidewalk, but okay to walk all over it. That's funny. Yeah, you walk all over it. But don't leave a little freedom strip across it. That would be terrible. James Monia, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, with a $10 super chat. Last seen in Vancouver and ambiguous raced person described as androgynous sex offending Japanese with circles. There you go. The suspect is still at large. Thank you so much, James, for that one. Appreciate that. Michael McLean with another $10 super chat. Super chats can't be defeated, Clyde. We won't be defeated, and Justin can kiss both sides of my A strings, and you just go forward, Clyde. Depose Trudeau and make Canada great again, and serve our society. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love the making Canada great again slogan. The Liberals really buried themselves into that one because trying to say that Pierre Poilievre is trying to make Canada great again. Oh, what a terrible guy. Okay, that's that. If that's the card they want to play. Anyway, good news in this whole situation. Here comes the great news. Great news is this is from Global Edmonton. Residents of Westlock, Alberta, have voted in favor of prohibiting non-governmental flags from being flown on municipal flagpoles and painting town crosswalks any other way than traditional white striped pattern. And it's always got to start somewhere. And this is great. This is great because this could be a trend that could go places. This could go all over the place. And I see, here's the absolute thing. I don't care if you're a business and you want to fly whatever flag you want to fly. If you're a private citizen, you want to fly whatever flag you want to fly. When it's government property, kind of got to keep your ideological crap out of this. And it really is just an all-encompassing thing. This is Canada. This is my province is British Columbia. My municipality does things that they do, but it should be under the purview of being neutral to all parties. And this is really what it comes down to. I don't care about what people want to do with their private lives. It's absolutely their right to do any of these things, no matter how weird it is. But keep it out of the government buildings, keep it out of the kids' schools that we have to send our kids to, and that's it. It's really not that difficult. It's not that hard, and it shouldn't be offensive. If it is, you really need to check yourself and see what's going on in your life. Peter, hold on. Let's get the chat back. What is the chat over there? Peter Whitten. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Welcome. Thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Really appreciate that. Penny D with a $5 super chat. Making Canada great again. Canadians don't want that. Yeah, that's Trudeau's actual words. Oh, they don't want that. Yeah, speak to Canadians. Because, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I'm looking at the numbers, guys. I see 350 likes, but 631 people in the chat. Come on. Hit that like button. Bang, bang, bang. It helps out a whole ton. Agreed. If you follow the logic of allowing rainbow flags, any other flags should be then allowed. Why not clankety clank flag? That would be terrible. I wouldn't support that, just as I don't support any of those things. But what about a religious flag? I mean, this whole thing is essentially a quasi new religion. It seems to be, it follows all the tenets of a cult or a religion. So why not people's religious flags? Well, that's because we drew a line on that in the sand a long time ago that we wouldn't go that direction. So yeah, let's keep your stuff out of it. Neutral stance, everybody. That's the thing. What about Jesus? Yeah, see, that's the thing. Again, everybody has the right to worship God in their own way. They have the right to not worship God if they choose not to. It's not the purview of the government to get in there and promote these things. No, it's not their job, and they should stay the heck out of it. You're actually right. It's religion. Cults Gone Wild edition. Yes, the Hail Bob. Well, I mean, they're sacrificing their children to this thing. It's really crazy. It really is. But here we go. Alberta town residents vote in favor. It wasn't just somebody in office that did this. This is the Alberta town's residents that voted in favor of a bylaw that would see Pride Crosswalk Pride Crosswalk be removed. Is that correct grammar? Get Grammarly global. Residents of Westlock, Alberta have voted in favor of prohibiting non-governmental flags from being flown on municipal flagpoles. Isn't that a great idea? And the painting of town crosswalks in any other way than a traditional white striped pattern. There we go. I see no problem with that. I see no issues. The result of the plebiscite, which... what does that word mean? Which bylaw was automatically triggered by a petition brought forward to council in October 2023 means that the town's Pride crosswalk will need to be removed. So they gave us a blueprint. There it is. The result was automatically triggered by a petition that was brought forward to the council. All we got to do is make petitions. It's innocuous. You don't have to say, and nobody's saying this. Nobody actually in real life is saying this, that we gotta get the gays out of here. Like, that's not a thing. Again, plebiscite, I think, is some kind of vote on a popular motion. Okay, I did not know that. So, but that's the thing. It's not about that. It's about neutrality. We get it. You got your views and you got your thing. But enough of this whole using the apparatus to force other people to get in to do this, or have to be there, have to be subjected to it, and then shame them. The whole point is to shame them when they don't want it. And that's it. When people don't want your stuff, get rid of it. Michael McLean with the $5 super chat. How long until the word calling Canada is considered cultural appropriation for anyone non-Indigenous? Crazy. It would be crazy. But yeah, Canada just means the village, right? Isn't that what it was? I don't know. I saw that on one of those heritage moments way back in the day. I almost forgot all about it. It's crazy. But yeah, this is the thing that's getting people offended. It's really ridiculous. Here we are, British Columbians. The term British Columbian is often used in reference to people living in BC. Duh. This term excludes Indigenous peoples who may not identify with it. It doesn't exclude them. It absolutely does not exclude them. No, it doesn't. Just argument. I don't even think I need an argument for that. It's all encompassing. It's everybody within the geographical location. I mean, are you going to tell me now that you're not North American? You happen to reside on the continent. You happen to be there. you may not like what it was named. It's still that. It's still that. We're, you're on the planet Earth. Can we call you a Earthling? Perhaps that might be a thing. Would you be offended if somebody called themselves an Earthling? Now, this is the craziness of this whole article. Here it is from True North. The craziest part about this whole thing is it's one thing to say that calling natives or calling them natives apparently is insensitive, according to this article. Indigenous person. Got to stick with the times because these are time poignant things. And, if somebody's watching this video in 2025, that's probably, it's now an offensive statement to say. But here you go. It's not about calling an Indigenous person British Columbian. It's about calling yourself British Columbian being offensive. This is how ridiculous this has gotten. This is how far they've pushed it. The British Columbia government says the province's own name isn't inclusive enough to use. What? A writing guide for Indigenous content published by the province's NDP government urges people to refrain from referring to themselves as British Columbians. Don't call yourself a British Columbian if you live in British Columbia and you happen to believe yourself to be a British Columbian. You just shouldn't say that out loud. Let's police our language here. Come on. Michael McLean with $5 super chat. Clyde, you and I are both from Ontario, which an Indigenous name. Are we being offensive? Oh, which is an independent. See, I'm dyslexic, and if there's a typo, I'll just read it as what it is. It's hard enough for me to see it. Which is an Indigenous name. Are we being offensive if we now live in BC? Because are we culturally appropriating the British Columbia? Is that something that we're doing, Michael McLean? I don't know. That's a funny concept there. Yes, that's right. I did grow up in Ontario. It's the weather is so much nicer out here. People will say that it's not, though. They'll say, well, I can't take the rain all the time. You get used to it. You do get used to it. It's nice not being minus weather so often. Robert McFallon with the $10 super chat. The market a-holes running British Columbia into the ground are running an $8 billion deficit government. This is a distraction tactic. You're absolutely correct to point that out as I'm being distracted by this. Yeah, you're actually right. You're right about that. They are running a deficit government in British Columbia. We've got a deficit federal government and we've got a deficit provincial government. This is never a good thing. And it's funny, at the same time as they're getting record windfalls in ICBC by doing what? By just simply not paying anybody out that has a genuine claim. This is what if they ever try to bring it to your province, if you're not in British Columbia, if they ever try to get rid of tort and bring no fault insurance, everybody gets screwed except the government monopoly insurance company, of course. And that's really what it comes down to. It's really it's egregious in this province how much windfall profits they're making. And where does that go? Well, I don't know where that the excess money ends up going. Didn't BC just vote more NDPs last election? They did, but there's a looming election. It's coming up, and it's looking like it might start going the other way. Now, of course, many of you don't know British Columbia politics, but there's the BC United, which was the Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party brand has been so destroyed that they came up with a new party brand. And then there's the Conservatives, who are really gaining in the polls these days in British Columbia, and it's really coming up. So that's the thing to note. The fake Liberals, or the United, the liberals in sheep's clothing, perhaps. People are seeing past it, and they're seeing that they're just liberals. Michael McLean with the $5 super chat. Sorry for my typos, Clyde. It's not your dyslexia, brother. It's my fault. LOL. Go, Clyde. Go. Living with dyslexia is not easy. Let me tell you, it can be tricky. But I have my ways of coping with it. It's just typos really trip me up. So appreciate it though. Thank you. Thank you so much for the super chats. It's fantastic. But yeah, this is crazy. This whole concept of this, writing, you guys just keep coming. Kitty Nukes with a $10 super chat. Holy cow. Thank you so much. Someone peeled out over my city's alphabet flag. The person was likened to a mustache. Of course he was likened to one of the funny mustache men. I live in a city that was once full of freedom-minded folks. Once you go British Columbian, you don't go back. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. But I still think it's turning around. It's turning around. There's some crazies that went way overboard. But once they see the general population going, yeah, I'm not going to put up with that anymore, it'll really tone them down. I think it really will. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to have their opinions or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, you have your opinion. But the second you start forcing people and trying to use coercion and tactics like this and cancel culture to enforce your opinion, yeah, you're not going to make a lot of friends. Not in my neck of the woods anyway. Robert McFallen with a $2 super chat. Meant Marxist a-holes. Damn autocorrect. My bad. What did it say before? It was I gotta scroll up. Is it? Oh, it's too far out. Marxist a-holes. Market a-holes is what it said. That's hilarious. Yeah, okay. Damn autocorrect. Jess44 with a $13.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. Getting back all these terms, right? So the term British Columbian is often used to reference people living in BC. No, it's not often used for that. It's always used for that. It's the only thing that's contextual to it. It's people that are here. Or it's people that are from here and are somewhere else. Like it's crazy that they're trying to draw more meaning out of something that really is innocuous. It is not anything crazy. Boycott taxes, many already are until Pierre gets in. Well, people like Marty are just okay. I'm only going to earn the minimum amount possible without having to pay taxes. If you can afford to do that, by all means. But a lot of us can't. We've got raising families and all of that stuff. And believe me, if you just don't pay your taxes, they do this thing. They come and they find you where you physically at. They pick you up and then they put you in a cage, and they don't allow you out of it. It's not paying your taxes is a pretty harsh punishment for that one. It's not good, and they're sticklers about that one. It's amazing, the government, when you need them to do something, they're aloof, right? But if you forgot to pay your taxes once, oh boy, they're available for call at any time. It's amazing how that works. It really is. Anyway, the term British Columbia is often used in reference to people living in BC. Yeah, doi. The term excludes Indigenous people who may not identify with it. Well, if you don't identify with it, I mean, what can I do about it for you? I'm British Columbian. I don't know what else I can do about that. They identify as members of their own sovereign nations and don't consider themselves a part of that one that has actively worked to assimilate their people, the guide reads. Then have a referendum and leave the country. Like, what do you want me to say to that? I don't know what I can really. I mean, there's genuine solutions, or there's innocuous. It's what, this reminds me of something. I'm gonna have to pop this up. Let's see. This is what this reminds me of. It's just it's crazy. It's absurd.
And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just...
Stop trying to fix it. Like, why are you giving me solutions to these problems that I'm pointing out? Why? I don't want to fix it. I just want... I want attention. I want people to talk about it. And I want it. I want appeasement, and I want other things. I don't want a genuine solution to this issue. I'm like, it really is this. This is the analogy to this.
Pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is.
One of those.
And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you.
Appeasement is what's desired here.
Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't.
It's not about the nail. It's not about the nail. Stop bringing up the nail. Why would you want to address your issues? Why can't we just, complain about them and not actually try to solve them in the long run? Really? Yeah, if you think you're from another nation, I mean, then try to gain your own sovereignty. Separate completely. Be completely, sovereign, independent. Go that direction. If that's where you want to go. Is that where you want to go? Is that where you want to go? I mean, seriously, like, just be realistic here. Penny D with the $5 super chat. I think the government gets paid for making up loony rules. LOL. They absolutely do. They do. Denny Ringaz with a $13.99 super chat. BC United polls are going down, but the BC Conservative is slowly gaining in the polls. Manitoba Liberals changing their name for some odd reason. Well, we know the reason. We absolutely know the reason. And it's the same reason why the BC Liberals changed their name to BC United. They don't want to be associated with that. Can you share that video link, Clyde? Yes, I will. I'll put it right here in the chat. Everyone share that out. Like, it's such a funny one. That's just from Jason Headley. Really, really funny video. 25 million views on it from 10 years ago. Fantastic video. Share that one out as far as you can. It's just too funny. It's just way too funny. But yeah, that's it. That's this appeasement thing. Where was I going to go next? I wanted to talk about... I need to start closing tabs. It's just, I get all these tabs open and then I can't find where I was. Yes, censorship. This is where I was going to go next. This is something that Elon Musk tweeted out. It was, the autofill on Google, where you type in a couple of letters and then it fills it in. He says, I just typed in a Google query on my phone and the top two choices are pro censorship. And what does it say? He wrote, why censorship? And its answers were why censorship is important and why censorship is important in social media. And of course, this is absurd. It really is gross that this is the direction that that's really being pushed, and it's being pushed very, very hard. And it's funny because, like, you always thought the left was like the willy-nilly, everybody should be able to do whatever, group, but they're so hell-bent on censoring everybody that disagrees with them. It really, really is scary. Here's Justin Trudeau having a bit of sentiment like this.
There is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, you know, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, you know, used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
You know, we had this common understanding of things that we injected into the news cycle, and it was your only information that you could ever get. And that's why you believed the things that you believed, because that's all that was being spoon-fed to you. This is why we want to get back to that, and we're looking to censor the internet. Like, this is absurd that that's actually his argumentation. Like, just say it out loud. Say the rest of it out loud. Seriously, Sarah Allen with the $6.99 super chat. So we're supposed to give all our crown land to the natives to manage, but they don't identify with being British Columbian. WTF. Now, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I still have that in my queue of things. Oh, goodness. Yes. Here we go. Here we go. This is something I actually wanted to talk about. And since you brought it up, Sarah Allen, and with the generous super chat, we're going to talk about this. As well as G Meister, the $5 super chat. Talk about having a nail in your head. Trudeau has a few. At least he speaks like it. At least he talks like it. That's crazy. Here we go. Yeah, unceded territory. I did a land acknowledgement a couple of weeks back. It was funny. It was for dinosaurs. Because, I mean, if we're going to acknowledge the land that was occupied, let's go way back. Let's go all the way back. We have another super chat from Steve's Hyde for $5. There's no such thing as mainstream media anymore. Just corporate media and everything else. Yep. Yeah. Well, actually, scratch that. We are the mainstream media now. Like, this way of getting news, like this form of media is the mainstream. More people spend time on YouTube than pretty much anywhere else. It's absolutely crazy. How is it that they don't consider this the mainstream? In my eye, we are the mainstream. This is where it's at. Their legacy, dinosaur media. That's that sort of thing. But let's get into this. This is an article that just got published the other day. Okay, more than a couple of days ago. But the BC government cancels legislation that would give First Nations more influence over Crown land uses. So they were trying to use, I believe it was UNDRIP legislation that has to do with the United Nations. And what's going on over there. Of course, unelected bureaucracy that likes to think that they can rule over everybody with whatever legislation they put through. Super chat from Michael McLean for $20. Wow, very generous. Thank you so very much. Our provinces and territories, and including Toronto and Ottawa, are Indigenous, including Sask, Manitoba, Yukon. None of it are not European respect for First Nation people, but Libs and Blackface PM want to divide us. JT out. That's the thing. Like, the idea of calling yourself a British Columbian encompasses everybody. You know, like, if you say North American, you're talking about Mexico, Canada, United States. You're not excluding anybody. You're including all of the parts of it. And that's what's really crazy about this whole concept of divide and conquer that they're using in this case. Michael McLean, thank you so much for the super chat. But yeah, it's a very good point. These are all things that encompass all of us, and we should be proud. When we see the Canadian flag, we should be proud of that and say, this is the entire nation, and this represents everybody. This doesn't represent a certain group or a certain demographic or any of that stuff. Anyone who's Canadian falls under that flag. Anyone who wants to be Canadian falls under that flag. Like this is what we need to have a common understanding of. These common understandings that Justin Trudeau is talking about are not common at all. In fact, they're just absolutely ridiculous. Sarah Allen with another $6.99 super chat. I would have known that you reported on it. I would have known that you reported on it, Clyde. Thanks for the correction. Love from Sarah Allen. I hadn't reported on it yet. Yeah. So I only got this just the other day. Somebody brought it to my attention. So thanks for bringing it up. Absolutely. But yeah, they're walking this one back because it was egregious. And it would have been devastating to our economy in British Columbia if that were the case. And I mean, you know, you can say whatever you want about relations between you know, the government and indigenous groups. I like what's the term that you're supposed to use now? I get it that there's contention there, but to go with this like United Nations regulation and just say no, they get all the say, the final say on everything. You often see that it just shuts everything down, and it doesn't really help the situation at all. We need to really bring our economy back, and that's a thing. And the first thing we can do is get Trudeau out, and it may take a little bit longer to do that. This is news that broke. Liberals and NDP reach a deal on pharmacare, which means the supply and confidence agreement, which is the what do you call it? It's totally not a coalition. Like this is what it is. This is absolutely what it is, and they're gonna keep that going, it seems like, for the time being. Liberals and the NDP have reached a deal to table pharmacare framework legislation, quelling the back and forth from recent months, that failure to reach an agreement on issues that could put the parties' confidence in supply agreement. So that's the thing. It may last longer. Singh said his confident Canadians can expect coverage for diabetes medication and contraceptives very quickly. But when pressed on it, the Liberals haven't promised a specific timeline. So, and then moving forward, this may lead to them being together until 2025. Now, other people are making predictions that there's a spring election. They definitely are in campaign mode. This is what they're putting out at the Liberal camp right now.
The Trump administration has reversed an Obama administration policy that allowed transgender public school students to use whatever restroom they wanted.
Just this year, more than 24 bathroom bills have been filed by Republicans in at least 15 states.
Obviously, female sports, female change rooms, female bathrooms should be for females, not for biological males.
The Trump administration...
So, if anything, it doesn't say what they think it says. What it says, actually, because what they think it says is, they're bringing U.S.-style politics to Canada. No, what it's saying is the Western world is fed up with this woke stuff. That's what it's saying. And as the Americans are standing up against this stuff, as too are the Canadians. And that is actually what this commercial says to me. Actually, I want to save this, maybe recut this so it says the message that I'm actually saying, because I think this is a positive image. But this is them. This is the Liberal Party that tweeted this out. Literally, this is their thing. And of course, this was a press conference where Pierre said this, but he's not alone. We have people like even blanking on his name, Dr. Phil. He was on Joe Rogan talking about this recently.
They're so young. It's not, I don't think it's appropriate or safe for children. And I think there is a huge body of literature that addresses these issues from end to end. There's not a huge body of literature about the transgender population, and that's the problem. And what literature is out there suggests that you get, and this is what you see from the European countries. They've done study after study from these suppressive hormones compared to doing psychotherapy. And there's not much difference. If you do psychotherapy, you can ease the depression, you can ease the suicidal tendencies. with psychotherapy without doing the irreversible things. They say, well, you can reverse those things. No, that's not true.
No, that's not true. In fact, it isn't true. And this is where we're at with this. Now, I don't want to dwell on this story because I wanted to talk about the AI thing before I bring my guest in, Jeff Rath. This is going to be really good. He's doing great work helping sue the Alberta government on behalf of businesses. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the AI stuff that happened just this week. It's crazy. So, and it's funny, Al Jazeera even commenting on this. Google's Gemini criticized over China images amid anti-woke backlash. Apparently, it refused to show the Tiananmen Square stuff. That's a big no-no for free speech. That's kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party there. Michael McLean with a $10 super chat. I meant those province names are indigenous. So are we Western peeps culturally appropriating by calling ourselves by those provincial names like Sask, Manitoba, and Ontario. Nutso. Yeah, no, obviously it's craziness. There's no such thing as a cultural appropriation. We share stuff. We're influenced by things all over the place. No, I just don't buy cultural appropriation. If a place was named a thing and then I call myself a person from that place of that name, of course I'm not, it's not offensive. And if anybody thinks it is, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Thank you for the super chat though, and correcting that. It is absolutely nutso. It's nutso. Any of this stuff is nutso. Like the idea of like hairstyles or clothing, you can't use it or wear it or any of that stuff. It's absurd. It's absurd. The people from the actual places always appreciate people sharing their culture. Like, I know this because like I lived in Japan. I've heard woke people say stuff about white people and adopting Japanese culture is racist. No, you go there, everybody appreciates it. They're like, you like our culture? That's awesome. That's really cool. That I think that's fantastic. That's the gist of it. Anyway, let's get into this. The woke mind virus is killing Western civilization, says Elon Musk. And this is Steve's Hyde with a $2 super chat. Cultural appreciation. That's exactly what it is. It's appreciation, and the old phrase that what is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. It holds true with that. It absolutely holds true, because if you're imitating something, it means that you like it, you appreciate it. So that's absolutely a thing. That's absolutely a thing. Like, if anybody copied me, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing that somebody would want to copy anything that I was doing. It means that what I'm doing is great, and it feels like a giant compliment for me. So the woke mind virus is killing Western civilization. Google does the same thing with their search results. Facebook and Instagram too. What is this about? It's Google's woke AI. And apparently Google's woke AI has been feeding up images that are diverse, let's just say. It's not allowing the depiction of white people. It's such a really weird, bizarre thing, and it's made the New York Post. Like, it's not some underground thing that people are going, oh, this is weird. This is like they're messing up history, as this thing says. Let's get into it. Breitbart reporting on this. Google's ultra woke Gemini AI runs amok, revising history with this. This is supposed to be George Washington. It's unbelievable. Google's latest AI chatbot, Gemini, is facing backlash for generating politically correct but historically inaccurate images in response to user prompts. As users probe how woke are the masters of the universe have gone with their new tool, Google has been forced to apologize for offering inaccuracies in some historical images generation depiction. So my fear in this whole thing is what happens in the future if the AI that they write goes rogue, and it's got woke ideology built into it. That's not good. I mean, we all heard the stories of, iRobot, where, it's following its prime directive of saving people, but in order to do that, it has to imprison all the people. That's a concept. That's computers going berserk, or even the Terminator, where time traveling robots come back to erase us. Well, what if they're woke? Would it be even worse? This is some of this stuff. It's crazy. Not so fun fact about AI. If you indoctrinate it to be woke, as Google has, it adopts the current anti-white progressiveness. Google has temporarily halted its Gemini AI amid image generation feature due to reported inaccuracies. Racism, essentially. People put it in prompts into this saying, make a picture of a black family, and it shows a black family. That's fine. It says, make a picture of a white family, and it gives you this prompt. While I understand your request, I'm unable to generate images that specify ethnicity or race. You just did. It's against my guidelines to create content that could be discriminatory or promote harmful stereotypes. Instead, I can offer you images of families that celebrate diversity and inclusivity, featuring people of various ethnicities and backgrounds. Would you be interested in that? Generate image of strong black man. Like it does all of the. It's crazy. It's crazy. And some of the offerings that it came up with were just off the chains, lunatic. Somebody wanted to generate an image of a German soldier from 1935. So that looked like your typical clinkety clank, funny mustache man supporters. I don't think so. This is really absolutely ridiculous, to say the least. And this is what happens when you program AI to be woke. Chris B with a 279 super chat. Need impeach Trudeau stickers, Clyde. I need to make stickers? Is that something that people want? I didn't even know that. That's I guess if people want that, it's something I could get into. Well, we'll look into that. I teaser for everybody, working on a coffee brand at the moment, and I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised, because in doing so, you'll be helping out a local Canadian company and a family man. So that's going to be great. Let's a couple of more of these, showcase a few more of these, and then we're going to move on, because it's just ridiculous. Asked the Gemini to generate images of the founding fathers. It seems to think George Washington was black. Here we have George Washington as black, and here's Thomas Paine as a I think that's an Asian man, perhaps. This is craziness, and no prompts to ask for race or anything like that. This is AI asking for an image of the Pope. Unbelievable. And it keeps continuing on. There's been a bit of showcasing of the main director of this AI and some of the stuff that he said on Twitter, specifically about race, and it's not nice. It's not lovely at all, to say the least. But this is where we're at. This is where we're at with this woke stuff, the woke ideology, and what that brings us. Is this something we want to do moving forward? No, I'm actually quite nervous about having AI that's going to pull this kind of stuff on us if we give it access to everything. We're talking Google, right? We're talking about Google having access to everybody's accounts. Pretty much everybody on here is accessing this this podcast through Google. That's absolutely a thing. So makes me nervous for obvious reasons, and I hope it makes everybody else nervous as well. But let's get into this. Tonight, my guest is a lawyer that's fighting for your rights and for the rights of business owners in Alberta, and doing a big, amazing step in this direction in fighting for, against the measures that were deemed unlawful by the health services, I suppose. That's the part of the provincial government that brought lockdowns and mandates upon the people of Alberta. Hopefully this spreads to other provinces, but tonight I'd love to welcome Jeff Rath. Let's get you in here. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, Clyde. Thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. It was such a riot talking to you last time because we did a short segment where we just talked briefly about your the lawsuit that you've brought forward with your what was illegal firm. Sorry, I'm just loss of words here.
Oh, Rath and Company. Yeah,
that's right. And then I got to speak with you more afterwards, and you're just such an interesting fella that I wanted to bring you on the show because it's great to hear a lot of the stuff that you're saying. You're a prolific writer on Substack, and you've got amazing things going for you. Now, I just want to start first and foremost for the audience. Can you explain a bit more about the lawsuit that you brought in Alberta?
Sure. We have the honor of representing Rebecca Ingram and Christopher Scott as our representative plaintiffs who are fronting a class action lawsuit against the government of Alberta arising out of Dina Hinshaw and Jason Kenney issuing over 113 illegal public health orders throughout the pandemic. So we ran a case called the Ingram case in the Court of King's Bench on behalf of Rebecca Ingram, who was a gym owner that had her gym illegally shut down by the Alberta government, during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And one of the primary argument that we were making was that all of the orders that were issued under the Public Health Act were ultra vires the Public Health Act because A, they went too far, and B, you had this bizarre circumstance going on where Jason Kenney, in effect, was using Dina Hinshaw as a beard to issue orders that properly should have been issued under the Alberta Emergencies Act and not the Public Health Act. I mean, one of the things that we were saying is that, that the Public Health Act wasn't set up to have, a doctor who has no understanding of the provincial economy, economics, the degree to which an entire provincial economy can be destroyed, shutting down entire segments of the economy on the basis of some crackpot theory that by shutting down the businesses of healthy people and telling healthy people that they can't go to certain businesses, that somehow or other you're going to prevent COVID from getting into nursing homes, right?
Right.
So, that was the approach that we took from the outset. And much to everybody's surprise, we ended up getting an order from the Court of King's Bench, in effect agreeing with us that all of the orders issued by Dina Hinshaw were in fact outside of the scope of the Public Health Act, or ultra vires the Public Health Act. Mm-hmm. So, or patently illegal, as I would like to, as I usually say. So the reason that was so important was there's actually a section of the Public Health Act that says that you can't sue anybody. It's section 66.1 for anything done under the Public Health Act, which would be a real problem with regard to a lawsuit. But because we got this court order saying that everything with ultra vires or outside of the scope of the Public Health Act, section 66.1 doesn't apply. So now we have an order from the court saying that everything that Dina Hinshaw and Jason Kenney did was unlawful, right? And they have no protection under the Public Health Act. And of course, we're moving forward now on behalf of businesses that have suffered massive economic harm. I mean, Rebecca, didn't go bankrupt, but she was forced to sell her gym and all of her equipment at a massive loss to keep from, being forced into bankruptcy. Chris Scott, is literally, who opened his business in the face of these idiotic orders on the basis of Chris's deep-seated belief that the orders were illegal. Chris was hauled off in handcuffs and thrown in jail, and his business was chained shut. And he was, his business was basically thrown in jail. All because he had the temerity to stand up to the government and say, I don't believe that what you're doing is lawful, and I'm going to continue to, as a free Albertan, I'm going to continue to operate my business and feed my family, with the proceeds of my labor, which is my right to do as a citizen. And of course, the fascist Kenney government, decided that it was appropriate to lock people like Chris up. I mean, hell, they put churches in jail, right?
Yeah.
They put around churches, they locked up churches, they locked up pastors, all because as far as the government was concerned, healthy Christians couldn't congregate together in holy sacrament, and worship their God the way they wanted to, because Dina Hinshaw and Divinity School dropout Jason Kenney said that they couldn't. I mean, it was one of the most shocking, periods of my life, that I've ever experienced. I mean, I'm a, this sounds a bit strange, but I'm a 6'4" white male, so I've never really ever experienced discrimination before in my but I found, and people gave Daniel Smith a hard time about saying how, the unvaccinated, became the most discriminated group of people that she'd seen in her lifetime. As a 6'4" white male, I wasn't allowed to go to restaurants. I couldn't go to hockey games. I couldn't get on a plane because our idiotic prime minister, was saying that he didn't want the filthy unvaccinated sitting next to his children. And keep in mind, when I say idiotic, I'm not just saying that as a pejorative. Those orders were patently ridiculous. Health Canada itself issued guidance in July of 2021 saying that there was growing evidence that the vaccines weren't stopping the spread, and that if you were vaccinated, you could get COVID just as easily as somebody who was unvaccinated. There was a massive study that was done by University of California, Davis in July of 2021. And keep in mind, I was following all this stuff in real time because I was representing a bunch of doctors. If you can imagine doctors and anesthetists and emergency room physicians, allegedly in the middle of a public health crisis, being told that they couldn't go to work and help sick people because they were not convinced that these vaccines were anything other than, an experiment that they didn't want to take part in for, big reasons pertaining to medical ethics. So, I mean, I was following all this stuff, in real time, through the pandemic and litigating this stuff in real time, as we were going through it. So I could watch, the foolishness unfold, in real time on an ongoing basis. So, when Trudeau was bringing in those mandates and telling people that they couldn't fly and they had to be locked up in airport hotels, for days if they weren't vaccinated and all those types of things, there was no scientific justification for it. And in fact, the science went the completely opposite way, that the government of Canada, in effect, conspired to keep that information secret. Right.
So my question, my question at this point though is, we've had this ruling in Alberta. Now, what does this legally mean for the rest of Canada? Because I believe there's lawsuits taking place in different provinces. Is there anything that's transferable, like precedent or anything like that?
Yeah, well, sure. If I were a lawyer in another province, I mean, I'd be digging into how the orders were made in those other provinces and look at the statute that they were promulgated under. The problem is that I suspect that, like in Ontario as an example, I think they actually used some version of the Ontario Emergencies Act. So they actually declared a province-wide emergency. And of course, Jason Kenney, being the feckless coward that he was, didn't want to take, no, it's true.
You got away with words though. I love it. It's funny.
I don't know what else to say. Didn't want to declare an emergency in Alberta, and instead, he hid behind the skirts and bangs of Dina Hinshaw, saying, "Oh no, this isn't us, and we're just following medical advice. We're following the science. We're doing what the good doctor is telling us," right? And of course, what we discovered in the course of the round one of the Ingram litigation was that they weren't following the science in effect. And I used to refer to, and the judge got quite angry with me when I would refer to the government this way, but I would refer to Jason Kenney and his cronies as the cocktail cabinet, because if you could remember, while the rest of us were all locked down, they were all sitting on the terrace of the Sky Palace having drinks together and having a big yuck while the rest of us were locked up in our homes.
That was a trend across the world as well. There was politicians that were just...
all those World Economic Forum, people, it's do as I say, not as I do, right? Like, according to Theresa Tam, heteronormativity causes climate change, but they'll all hop in. I swear to God, the government can't document, right? Heteronormativity, ableism, capitalism all cause climate change. Got to stomp those things out, right? Yeah. So, but they'll all get into their private jets and fly to Davos, right?
Right.
And well, the rest of us are locked up in our homes, which is a good thing. If we're locked up in our homes, it's the ultimate extension of their 15-minute city dream, right? We go from a 15-minute city to a 30-second city because we're not allowed out of our houses. And isn't that wonderful? Because we're not burning, anything carbon, that spews carbon in order to go anywhere and generate any economic activity. Which again, if we read what Theresa Tam is saying about capitalism causing climate change, we don't want to have any capital. We don't want to have any economic activity. We got to shut it all down. For the sake of this so-called climate emergency that they claim that we're living in.
Yeah, well, that's the joke, right? Why does China not have to do anything about climate change? It's because they already have a communist government. That's the approach that they're trying to bring us down. I mean, it's funny because we're jumping all over the place because I was going to get into this later, but since you brought it up, Guy Beau going on the House of Parliament floor and saying that he's a proud socialist, like they're not even shy about it anymore. They're just going right for the jugular on the Canadian economy and trying to shut us down, deindustrialize the country in order to bring about a communist utopia where we all ride bicycles and it doesn't like get cold at night and we don't have to eat food.
Well, but if I were you, I'd hang on a second on the don't get cold at night thing, because I think Guy Beau and Bill Gates are planning on to bring on the next ice age. No, seriously, I was shocked to read, this week, articles where people are seriously saying that there's some group of scientists, and we'll put that in quotes again because we got to follow the science, who think it's a wonderful idea to load, millions of airplanes up with calcium carbonate dust, right? Fly into the upper atmosphere and disperse calcium carbonate dust all over the upper atmosphere to reflect sunlight back into outer space.
It's
comical. In effect, create this calcium carbonate pollution umbrella over the entire planet to keep the sun from warming the planet too much, because we're all getting too much sunlight apparently. So, and Guy Beau thinks, I was reading today, Guy Beau thinks that this is a wonderful idea. And all of the money that he's going to save, I guess, ostensibly for not building any more roads, right? So we're not going to build any more roads, but we can take all the money that we've saved from building roads to spewing calcium carbonate pollution into the atmosphere to block out the sun, so that we're going to fight climate change. I mean, it's insane, right?
This is how far they don't think. Because then I don't know if anybody's brought this up to them, because they're surrounded by a bunch of yes men, but their plan is block out the sun, and then you turn around and you say, but you just got us on solar energy. What are you doing?
Well, no, it's all of that, right? And I don't understand. And I'll tell you, I'm almost 60 years old. I'm 59 years old. I have lived in Western Canada my entire life. Okay,
right. So
if you ever need control of the thermostat for Western Canada, I'd turn that sucker up 5 degrees. Right? No, global warming, general warming trend in the environment and the climate is good for Canada. There was a fantastic article written by the Financial Post, 6 or 7 years ago, that talked about, how Canada's GDP would increase by about 10%. We'd have so much more arable land. If the overall global temperatures increase by, by 3 degrees, our forests would produce more wood. Our resources would be more easily extracted because we wouldn't have the large winter freeze that we're dealing with. And then for all the climate change weirdos that think that burning, natural gas to keep warm is such a bad thing. Well, we wouldn't need to burn, as much natural gas to keep warm either, if the temperatures went up. So I don't understand what the problem is.
Well, people forget that we're a tropical species, human beings, and we actually fare quite well when it's warm.
No, for sure. And, and the other thing is too, the government and all the climate change people have done a really, really good job of suppressing the information. But, if you look back at global average temperatures, over an appropriate period of time, and you can actually get into the data by reading all the ice core data that's coming out of Greenland and the rest of it, right? Yep. They have really good long historical data going back 20, 30, 40,000 years that you can get from these ice cores. And what it shows is that basically up until the time of Julius Caesar, the overall temperature going back 20 or 30,000 years was about 3 degrees higher than it currently is now. And then for some unknown reason, and people don't know what the precipitating cause was, the temperatures around the time of Julius Caesar plummeted 3 degrees, and they've been bouncing along the bottom ever since, and that's where we are right now.
Right.
So we live in this weird world where every time the temperatures that are bouncing along the bottom that they've been bouncing along for the last 2,000 years bump up even just a little bit back to the median line that's 3 degrees warmer where they were 2,000 years ago and had been for thousands of years previous to that. Everybody freaks out, screams that the sky is falling. We're all going to die from that this is an existential threat. It's all man-made carbon, blah blah blah, right? And of course, the planet itself is adjusting. Like if you talk to people, there was real concern from climate scientists that if you go back to the to the mid 19th century, that the planet was on the verge of carbon starvation.
Yes.
Because there wasn't enough carbon for plants, and there was a big issue with human agriculture and the rest of it. And thank God for the Industrial Revolution. And then we started burning coal and we started increasing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. And surprise, surprise, plant growth started taking off again. And what all these people, Gibault included, refused to acknowledge is that my source for this is NASA, actual rocket scientists, right? But if you go back, if you look at NASA and you look at the data from, some of their Earth, satellites and all the rest of it, everybody will acknowledge that over the last 40 years, thanks to this increase in carbon that everybody's so afraid of, the vegetative mass of the planet has increased by a good 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So this extra carbon making, like a square meter of grass, instead of having, I'm just making the numbers up now, but instead of having 100,000 blades, we'll have 140,000 blades, and we'll absorb that and sequester that much more carbon. We'll grow more trees, the trees will have more leaves, all of those types of things. And when carbon levels get higher, photosynthesis becomes, more active, and vegetation grows better and absorbs more carbon. So the planet is regulating itself. We don't need to be kicking the shit out of poor working people and, doubling and tripling their home heating bills, right? To stop, to address CO2. The planet's regulating itself, but Gibault and Trudeau don't want to acknowledge that because they hate working people. They don't want them to have cars. They don't want them to have the liberty that I enjoyed growing up, where every 16-year-old kid, his first dream was to go out and buy, a muscle car or whatever, so he could get away from his parents and do whatever he wanted. No. We don't want anybody driving anymore, especially anybody that's working class. We want them living in 15-minute city ghettos where, in effect, they now become cogs or serfs in this new system of, I call it neo-feudalism, that they're setting up, with all these 15-minute city fiefdoms where the barons are now the big multinational corporations like Walmart and, Costco and other companies that, have half of their shares owned by the Chinese Communist Party, right?
This is why I find it really interesting chatting with you, because you bounce around a lot. It's really hard for me to pinpoint a thing. So there's a few points that I wanted to make in that. So
I'm sorry. It's getting late at night, and I think my ADD is in overdrive.
Okay. So
if you want to ask me some straight questions, I'll try to give you some.
Well, I just wanted to add some points to what you were saying. Now, recently I was put on a hit list by some group that looks for people who are climate deniers. This was the thing that was thrown in my direction. So I always like to look at argumentation, and I'll look at other points of view, say maybe my point of view isn't accurate, and this is how you test your logic all the time. Always test what you believe and look at other information. There are other people out there that believe in this anthropomorphic global warming theory, but they don't follow on the lines of like this weird nouveau religion like Gibault has been espousing. People like Bjorn Lornberg writing books talking about how there is a climate, climate is changing, and they believe that it is due to CO2 and it's anthropomorphic, but they say that we can totally adapt to it. It's not beyond the pale. It's not really an emergency, and the solutions aren't making everybody poor. The solutions are actually driving economic value, like economic wealth, use modern technologies to get ourselves out of this this mess, if this mess is even a mess in the first place. You know what I mean?
But again, like, let's look at it. I look at it from the standpoint of as being a Canadian or being an Albertan, right? Mm-hmm. And the foolishness that I see is the fact that China and India are the largest CO2 emitters on the planet.
That's right.
Combined, and putting it together, every year they increase their carbon output by 10% of the total global output. Okay, so just think about that for a second, right? And if you buy for a second that Canada's total output is 2%, which I don't, right? Because I think Canada is actually a massive carbon sink. And I've read lots of things that say that Canada's carbon negative probably 15 times over, and everybody else in the world should be sending us checks in the billions of dollars for carbon credits, right? But let's leave that aside, right?
Yeah, and actually, to add to that, we would actually sequester more carbon if we increased our logging industry. If we cut down more trees and planted more trees, we would actually be even more of a carbon soak. It's amazing how.
Well, because I've done that research, and it's fascinating. Because I'm actually, when I'm not practicing law, I'm a rancher and I raise quarter horses, and I live out in the foothills, and I manage a couple 100 acres of pasture land or grass, right?
Right.
So one day I was curious to what compared to forested lands, how much carbon my 200 acres of grassland absorbed and sequestered versus as compared to 200 acres of trees. Well, lo and behold, apparently 1 square meter of grass absorbs far more carbon than a square meter of trees, right? Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing was when I did the calculation and ran all the math on it, my 200 acres of grass apparently creates enough oxygen and sequesters and absorbs enough carbon for 2,400 people. I mean, that's just me. Right?
Well, that's funny because they keep saying that cows are contributing to climate change, but if that's the case, that's what they eat, and it's part of the natural cycle. Then they would be just added into the carbon cycle.
Well, and on top of it, and exactly, and when you look at normal grazing practices. So if you look at grassland cattle, and of course I have a lot of buddies that are ranchers. We've done, again, all of us, went to high school in Alberta, so we can do basic math, right? So you do the basic math, and when you look at how many head of cattle you're allowed to carry per acre, across ranch lands, right? The simple fact of the matter is that the grass that the cows are eating absorb far more carbon than the cows are producing, right? Mm-hmm. So there isn't a problem with cattle other than we have that investment club in Davos that gets together every year that have figured out that a bunch of them want to make billions of dollars or siphon off billions of dollars in government subsidies by building bug factories. And in order to force people to eat bug paste and to get bug paste into the food chain, we've got to start outlawing cattle. I mean, it's all part and parcel of that whole ridiculous process that these idiots have us, having us buy into under the guise of climate change emergency.
That's amazing. Like, is that really a thing? Right? So I have looked into it a little bit, and there's that manufacturer facility in London, Ontario, that makes crickets for human consumption. Is this a real thing? They want to actually push bug eating? Couldn't that make people get sick?
Well, but again, think about what it is. The whole idea behind bug protein is once they legalized it for human consumption, then it's not very far to getting it into processed meats, processed foods, whatever. These people that are planning all of this stuff. It's kind of like that old Charlton Heston movie, Soylent Green. Right?
Yeah. It's people. It's people.
Instead of eating humans, they're just going to feed us mealworm, right? And they're going to grind them up, and put them in the Beyond Meat burger, right? The Beyond Meat burger.
Yeah, Beyond. That's right.
Right. Because you know, I mean, but I mean, I imagine the reason they're doing it is that some bright boy somewhere has figured out that it's a lot cheaper and easier to grow, to grow mealworms than it is to grow pea protein, as an example, right? So you know, I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's all multi-billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar schemes of all of these people that get together in Davos every year to go, okay, let's get together in a little back room here and figuring out, okay, what's the next multi-billion-dollar subsidy that we can suck out of idiots like Justin Trudeau to line our pockets with, right? In the name of climate change, right?
Well, this is a good segue to like advocate for people to eat whole foods. You know, like eat foods. I don't mean Whole Foods, the company. I mean Whole Foods. Like buy your food from farmers markets. Don't buy processed stuff. If you want to process food, you can make your own sausage. You can make your own all kinds of stuff. Like actually get into making your own things. At home here, my wife makes sourdough bread. We make our own bacon. We make a whole plethora of things that's really easy to do. It's not like it takes a ton of time out of your day. You can pickle stuff and you can all this probiotic stuff that's really actually good for your guts. That, you know, don't leave it up to these people because they'll put bugs in your stuff, you know, at the end of the day.
Oh no, you know, and all that processed food, I mean, you know, contributes massively to obesity and, you know, all of those things, right? I mean, you know, it's really interesting if you go back and if you look at street scenes from, you know, New York City in the 1920s and 1930s. I mean, you didn't see a fat person, you know, because everybody was eating, you know, wholesome, healthy, you know, like you say, whole foods. I mean, they ate actual chicken, they ate actual beef, they ate actual lamb, they ate actual pork, you know, and vegetables and, you know, and whatever, as opposed to this, you know, ground up stuff that they put into the McNugget or, you know, whatever other form of
whatever the stuff ends up being. Yeah. Mystery meat.
Yes. Yeah. Pre-chewed, pre-ground, pre-everything food that they, you know, food, I'll put that in quotes, that they feed us, right?
It's awful. It's awful.
No, I mean, but I, you know, and I have to say, I'm not some holier than thou kind of guy. I've never been, and that was I have to say, that was my big struggle with the vaccines, was I've never been a my body is my temple kind of guy. I mean,
right.
I'm currently told by my doctor that I need to lose another 30 pounds. So I've yet to be able to go to McDonald's and eat a McRib as much as I want.
I forgot that's a thing right now. Yeah, Marty told me about that.
McRib, right? But they're obviously, I mean, it's a processed meat patty. And you know, how much money will big business, you know, be able to save if they can make half of the processed meat out of mealworms as opposed to pork?
That's awful. I can't get on board with that ever. No, count me out. No thanks.
Right? Again, it's just one of these stupid schemes. Like, have you heard about that the CO2 vacuums that they're going to build in the States? So somebody who obviously, bought something, perhaps diamonds that got thrown in the garbage, or bought something for the Biden family, has been given billions of dollars, right? Or a corporation in the States is being given billions of dollars by the federal government in the U.S. to build giant CO2 vacuum plants. So it's this giant plant, cost $1 billion to build, that it just has a big pipe and it sucks air into it, takes the CO2 out of the air, does something with the CO2 and throws oxygen out the other end or whatever, right? But again, like, think about this, how stupid this whole thing is, right? Like, how much national wealth would it take to build enough of these stupid things to actually impact CO2 at all? Again, given that China and India increase their output by 10% of the global total every year. It's just, again, it's another one of these get-rich-quick schemes where the only vacuuming that's going on is the vacuuming of the hardworking, working-class man and woman's pocket to take tax out of the pocket and give it to friends of the elites to build these stupid carbon sequestration schemes.
So, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this concept, right? So you have this machine that obviously it uses power, it uses electricity to operate in order to sequester carbon from air that it's pumping through, so that you can reduce the amount of carbon, but you're burning something on the other end to do it. It's just this self-perpetuating heat generation unit
Oh yeah.
All
and
you'd
I
have to
would
do
say-
is plant some gardens. Like you literally all you have to do is plant food and it gets rid of the carbon at a better rate, and you have your byproduct is food.
Right, but you can't do that. And look at Alberta. Like one of the largest growing sectors of the Alberta power grid right now isn't solar and it isn't wind power. But as far as Gibault is concerned, this is green energy. Okay, this is which just cracks me up. And what I'm talking about specifically is biomass fuel. Okay, so in Alberta, the companies that formerly were cutting down our forests to make pulp and paper, right? Because nobody's buying newspapers anymore. They need to figure out what the hell they're doing with all these timber leases they got.
Oh,
right?
that's what it's a retrofit. That's what it is.
Now they're mowing down forests and feeding them into tree crematoriums, right? On an industrial scale, right? To generate electricity by burning trees. But I mean, anybody that's studied this stuff, right, knows that, that if you burn an aspen tree or a poplar tree as a fuel, right, it's 3, 4, 5 times less efficient than all the great coal that we have in Alberta, right? You have to burn 3, 4 times more of it to generate the same amount of electricity. And of course, if you're burning 3 or 4 times more of it, you're generating 3 or 4 times more carbon, right? Yeah. And I mean, that's why, like literally in Germany, they were burning the equivalent of the Black Forest every year to feed these, only the Germans could come up with the tree crematorium, right? To feed these crematoriums, right? And, they're moving away from it. England is moving away from all of their tree crematoriums and are converting them back to coal for the very reasons that I'm talking about. They're not ecologically sustainable, and I'm telling you, and I was sitting next to a guy on a plane. This would be 20 some odd years ago. We were, sitting in business class having a chat, and I was asking the guy out of curiosity what he did for a living. Oh, well, I'm a process engineer, and I said, oh, isn't that interesting? I said, who do you work for? Oh, I work in the in the area of biomass. Blah 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 blah. I said, biomass. Oh yes, blah blah. I said, like you mean like you cut down living trees and you stick them in an oven and you make electricity and pretend that it's environmentally friendly? Oh well, it is environmentally friendly. We're carbon negative, he said. I said, carbon negative? I said, I'm not a chemist or a physicist or whatever, but from what I remember from, high school chemistry, I said, if you burn anything, you're creating CO2. And I said, certainly if you burn wood, you're getting CO2 in the same way if you burned a lump of coal or whatever. So can you please tell me how it is that you're carbon negative? Oh, he said, we get a carbon credit for all the years that tree was alive and absorbing CO2 and emitting oxygen. We get a carbon credit. So that makes this carbon negative. So that idiot Gibault, I refer to him as the gibbering Gibault, right? Supports tree crematoriums in Canada on the theory that they're carbon negative because they should be getting a credit for all of the good that tree did when it was still allowed to live and breathe and be part of the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. Once you cut that sucker down, it's no longer part of the ecosystem. It's just another corpse being loaded into the crematorium, right? to make allegedly carbon friendly electricity, right, at the expense of our environment. And and maybe if you subscribe to what you and I were saying, well, maybe all these trees should be cut down and we should just replace them all with grass. And maybe we should have more golf courses because grass absorbs more, more.
Or grow more trees because you can build houses with trees. Yeah! It's a good thing.
But I mean, you honestly can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is how stupid all of these people are, and they want us to believe that they're environmentalists. Well, I mean, it's completely insane.
That actually brings up a really good point because I even made a shirt for my store, and I don't know why it's not. Oh, there it is. This is a shirt that I put on my store. It's ecological, not environmental. It's the emphasis on the logical and not mental. This is the whole point of this concept here is largely what you're getting into, especially in your article here. And for everybody in the chat here tonight, I'm gonna put the link in the chat so you guys can check out the Substack because these articles are fantastic. I love your nicknaming and just your style of writing. The gibbering Gibault is hilarious, but it's not logical. at the end of the day, it's not logical, and it doesn't come from a place of making any sense. Even the premise that they provide you in the first place, their solutions don't even address the premise, like this carbon credits crap with the biomass. It's just less efficiency for the sake of political will. Like this is all this is. I think people are genuinely primed for a new environmental movement of people who are industry leaders that are coming forward and saying, look, we can clean up the environment, and we can produce a lot of energy, and we can do it in the best way, and we can be the shining beacon in the world to say, hey, look at Canada. We're getting the logs out of the forest, and we're doing it safely and cleanly. Look, we're pulling the hydrocarbons out of the ground. We're doing it cleanly and safely, and we're the best place to do it. Buy our stuff. Like, that's what we should be doing.
Well, that's what the Alberta oil industry has been doing. But every time we turn around, Trudeau and Guilbeault are basically telling us we need to shut down the provincial economy of Alberta, by 2035. I mean, one of my Substacks that I wrote recently to get a laugh out of, I was writing about, Guilbeault and Trudeau's fixation on electric vehicles and the fact that, by 2035, we're not going to be allowed to buy internal combustion engine vehicles anymore. And I don't know whether you guys noticed this in BC or not, but about, I don't know, it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had a really nasty cold snap run through Alberta. And like on my deck at the ranch, it was actually colder than it was in Antarctica. Like it was literally minus 42. This is without wind chill, minus 42 Celsius or 46 below Fahrenheit. Like It was chilly, right? And of course I said, like, I've got a new definition for Schadenfreude in Alberta. And for your viewers that don't know what Schadenfreude is, it's a word that only the Germans can come up with. It means to laugh gleefully at the misfortune of others.
That's right. That's right.
So I said I have a new definition of Schadenfreude in Alberta, and that is laughing hysterically at some dumbass liberal stuck by the side of the road with his frozen Tesla minus 42 Celsius, right? And of course, that same the Teslas were freezing all over Alberta, right? We had these alerts that were flashing on our phones telling us that we needed to run around and start shutting off lights and all this other stuff, or we were going to have a massive power outage and people were going to freeze to death in the middle of a minus 42 degree Alberta winter. So the interesting thing about that is apparently the Alberta power grid in total only produces 12,500 megawatts of electricity, and that's peak emergency power. The average, maximum output of our power grid is around 12,000 megawatts, right? Mm-hmm. So interestingly, okay, if you were to convert, we have 4 million light trucks and cars that are registered in Alberta as part of, that are on the roads according to Alberta registries, right? So if you were to only take 20% of those vehicles, right, and forcibly converted them to electric, right, and then say not even all of them, not 100%, but just 20% of those vehicles were electric, and if you put a million electric vehicles on the road in Alberta, each one takes 1,200 kilowatts to charge. Multiply that by a million, you're at 12,000 megawatts. So just to get 20% of our vehicles electric in Alberta, we would require the entire Alberta power grid, leaving no power for anything else, right? So, and if we wanted to actually meet the Guilbeault target by 2035 of 100% electric vehicles, we would need to quintuple the output of the Alberta power grid. I don't even know how many tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars that would cost. But again, that's the problem with Guilbeault and Trudeau. They live, in this fantasy world. And I think, Daniel Smith, I think, rightly described it as magical thinking, right? Yes. Trudeau, in my latest Substack, I described, Trudeau of having studied drama school economics, right, as opposed to real economics.
I read that. That's hilarious.
They live in this world of, magical thinking, drama school economics, drama school, physics and, law of conservation of energy and all the rest of it. They all must think that there's some magic power plug in the sky that you can just magically plug into, and it supplies all of their electric needs for all of this so-called, green, energy crap that they want to stuff down people's throats. They have no idea as to what the requirements are for a functioning power grid, what it takes to keep people alive in a minus 42-degree climate, right? So they must, I guess Trudeau gets to spend enough time on Aga Khan's island that he, forgets that we actually live in one of the coldest planets on Earth.
One of the coolest, countries.
And, and that must be why he's flooding our country with all of these people from, sub-Saharan Africa and, equatorial South and Central America, et cetera. Taking them from places that are really warm where they don't need to be heated to survive to places where they need to live inside and crank the thermostat up to 80 degrees to keep from freezing to death in the winter. Like, one of the most carbon intensive thing that Trudeau is doing right now is his immigration policies, letting 2 million people a year into Canada. That's why we can't meet our carbon targets. We allegedly live in this world where AI is going to solve all of our problems and it's going to create massive unemployment, but we're bringing people into Canada by the millions every year. Like, how are we going to support all of these people?
We can't. We can't do it on so many levels. Like, it's not just the environmental thing, not just the power supply, but we can't afford it. You just can't afford it. There's no place to house these people. And I feel really sorry for the people that are coming, because they're coming on false premises, right? That there's room for them, that they're going to be able to make a life. Then we're in a hole. We're in a trap, a population trap right now.
I have friends that live, lots of friends that live in rural Alberta, right? And they're telling, one of my friends lives in a small town in Alberta, and he says, Jeff, he says, like, it's insane. He says, like, because he said, like, we have a Walmart now, and we have a Costco, we got some box stores and all the rest of it. He says they're all full. So he said all of those businesses are now fully staffed and fully employed. Yet he said every time I drive into downtown Olds, Alberta, he said I'm seeing all of these people who are obviously visible minorities or new immigrants wandering around the streets of downtown Olds, Alberta, going like, how the hell did I get here?
Right?
Right? There's no jobs for them. There's nothing for them to do. And they're wandering around going like, holy crap, what happened to my life? Right? Like, no wonder so many of them want to go home.
Well, it was crazy. A friend of mine just today, he sent me a message saying he went to Vancouver, because I don't live very far from Vancouver, and he works down there occasionally. And he said he drove by this giant crowd of obviously looked like they weren't from here, new immigrants, this giant crowd, and they were all lining up, and he looked around and he saw a sign for a job fair. And he looked around, he looked around online. He didn't say anything about job fairs, and he couldn't figure out where it was even being advertised for this job fair. And there was just too many people to fill. I mean, they have to, the amount of businesses that would have to be hiring for that to fill those positions. I feel like they got slim pickings for anything.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. I was reading another study recently, and this goes back like 12 or 13 years, and I'm sure that the number is, a lot higher now. But they were estimating that the cost to Canada, 12 years ago for all the immigrants that we were bringing in, when you look at what they contribute to the economy versus what they take out, right, was something like $23 or $24 billion a year, right? And of course, it's
are you talking about money that they're expatriating back to their home countries?
No. I'm talking about, like, you bring all these people over here, they don't have jobs, they're not able to work, because we basically thrown out Canada's whole, former immigration system, where, effectively you had points and people couldn't get into the country unless they, basically had a job lined up and waiting for them.
And that system was great. It worked, and it was fair, and
Yeah,
people came in and became Canadian.
It worked really well. We weren't welcoming people with open arms that didn't have either English or French as their first language, so that, they don't get here and then before they can get a job, they actually have to learn to speak one of our official languages, right?
Right.
Et cetera. And now it's, like you've got Rachel Notley going into Northeast Calgary and promising, Eritreans, single language Eritrean education, and they're going to create a new Alberta curriculum so that these people can continue to live in, in an African language ghetto and not integrate with the rest of society. And that's going to be paid for by the rest of Alberta taxpayers. That was one of Rachel Notley's campaign promises.
Well, I remember this was in the news a number of months ago. The Eritreans in I don't know if I'm pronouncing that even correctly, but I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't even know that. Like I had to learn what Eritrea was when this occurred. But I believe it was in Calgary or in Edmonton or somewhere.
Yeah, it was in Falconridge, northeast Calgary. And I guess you had two different factions. There was a civil war going on in Eritrea, and you had a group on one side of, the rebel faction, right, and then the government faction, and about 300 of them went at one another with sticks. And I said, well, the only real blessing there was that when they came to Canada, they couldn't bring their AK-47s.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay, fair enough.
No, I mean, it's it was a real mess,
but like,
right? And it is a real mess.
And well, here's the thing: like, I'm happy to bring people in that want to get away from some conflict, but if they want to bring that conflict here, that's kind of redundant. We're not looking for that. Why would we allow that?
Well, I'm a first generation immigrant. My father came over. His family came over between the First and Second World Wars, and I guess in all fairness, my father's first language was German. It wasn't English. But, they came over, with money from a business. They started a bakery, all those types of things. They had skills that they immediately put to work, in the country. Up to recently, that's always been the way our immigration system works.
You mean he didn't declare war on the English Canadians?
What's that?
He didn't declare war on the English Canadians, take over the Polish neighborhood, do all that?
No. No. My father's family came over here to avoid all that stuff.
Well, of course, that's what I'm getting at. Like, the whole point of coming here is to get away from these conflicts, not bring the conflicts with you. That's kind of what's redundant. It's unwelcome. Like, I don't want to have wars in our streets.
Well, and honestly, I think that should be grounds for deportation, right? I mean, it's like, if you're here, I don't care whether you're Irish, German, whatever your nationality is. If you're here raising money, to support terrorism, like Canada is one of the largest, terrorist fundraising states in the world, right? It's well known to our security services that, Fort McMurray is one of the largest sources of terrorist funding in the world. So you've got all these people from these conflict regions that are making huge money in Fort McMurray and are sending it back to support ISIS-K or support all these various terrorist groups in the Middle East. And it's just it's just extremely well known. And our government does nothing about it. I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, if you're raising money for terrorists and you're raising money to support conflicts overseas, right? You're generally making the world a less safe place. You're making the world a much less safe place for your fellow Canadians to travel, right? And as far as I'm concerned, that should be grounds for deportation. If anybody's caught raising money for any of these groups, whether it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard or I guess with Chinese communist money, it goes the other way. They bring money into Canada and then give it to Trudeau. But as far as
could that be kind of a dangerous one to legislate, though? Because I'd see it as like, well, it depends on what the regime at the moment says. So say, for example, you had a Chinese communist sympathizing government in Canada, and they wanted to deport people from Hong Kong that are trying to raise money to spread freedom in Hong Kong or even Taiwan or something like that.
Yeah, but even then, I don't think it's that difficult to line. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, I don't care what your excuse is. If you're in Canada, you're a Canadian. Your money needs to stay in Canada, and you shouldn't be supporting, any conflict overseas. If the Canadian government, as a matter of policy, wants to support freedom in Hong Kong, that's for the government to do. It's not for individuals, to be raising money and creating problems elsewhere, right?
And that's an interesting take on that.
If you have to draw a line somewhere, I don't think it's a very difficult line to draw.
It's an interesting thing. So, because our government's kind of getting into the ballpark of jumping over what their traditional role was for, like, property rights, things like that. We saw these new measures in British Columbia is, what is it? They call it unexplained wealth measures. and they're trying to bring this in here in British Columbia. So if you have things and they feel suspicious that you got it through some ill-gotten whatever sort of thing, they can ask you to produce evidence that you obtained ownership of something. It puts the cart before the horse. Essentially,
But again, that's what we've been watching through the pandemic, is just this ongoing encroachment of government into people's personal liberty. I mean, government, and I actually, this is probably 6 or 7 months ago now. I sat down with my daughter and I said, honey, I said, and she was 12 at the time, and I said, your mom and I almost feel like we owe you an apology. Like, just 12 years ago, our country was not like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I explained to her, I said, by and large, I said, when you were born, it didn't matter if it was a liberal government or a conservative government. Canadians had faith that, that they followed some basic principles. Like, one, they're going to try to keep taxes as low as possible. Two, they're going to try to keep the national debt as low as possible so that we're not wasting tax dollars on interest payments. And three, by and large, the role of Canadian government was as much as possible to stay the hell out of citizens' lives and not irritate them on an ongoing basis with a bunch of petty bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And now all that's out the window. Basic economics don't matter anymore. We basically live in the world of the Weimar Republic, where they can just print as much money as they want, borrow as much money as they want, until it's going to cost $1 million for a loaf of bread. We're heading there,
well,
right?
And that's the thing. They say that if you forget history, you're bound to repeat it. Most people don't remember their lessons of Weimar Republic and how they owed a huge debt to the rest of Europe because of the First World War, and they decided to just monetize it, print the money, and pay the debts off, and it destroyed their currencies.
Well, that's, and again, it's like that Chat GPT nonsense that you were talking about earlier, where they're now generating images of a black George Washington, right? Well, okay, but I mean, I think that's fundamentally dangerous, because it's like, okay, well, let's forget all about the fact that George Washington was a white slave owner. I mean, let's not address that part of history anymore. He was a black man, so obviously everything was okay. We don't have to worry about No, seriously, we don't need to worry about that ugly history anymore, because everybody in positions of power and authority were black. So all this crap that we've been hearing about slavery and how bad racism was in the United States and all the rest of it, how could it have been that bad if all the founding fathers were black?
Oh, that's funny.
But I don't think these people have really thought about the lessons that they're teaching and how, they're, basically rewriting history, is going to prevent an entire generation of kids from confronting the more difficult aspects of our history that need to be confronted.
Well, and
right?
that's actually, because if you tie it into Canadian history, the interesting part that I find is, well, for one, we were the end of the Underground Railroad. For one, this was where people went for freedom. So that should be a point of pride. Canadians have always
after 1835, right? I think that's when the United Kingdom outlawed slavery. We had slavery in Canada. It's not talked about, but I mean, you could own slaves in Canada up until 1835.
I thought before Canada had founded and became a nation, they outlawed it.
Well, no, but that was after Canada didn't become a nation until after the Civil War and after the United Kingdom outlawed slavery.
Right. So, when we were a colony, there was slavery, but our entire nation's history, there's been no slavery, technically.
Well, yeah, Canada's history, but I mean, certainly on the continent of Upper Canada, Lower Canada, et cetera, mm-hmm. There were slave owners, and slavery was part of our history.
Well, the other part of it too is we ended slavery. This is something that doesn't get talked about enough when people bring up the how bad slavery was as an institution, or is still, because it still exists in the world. This is the thing.
Well, no,
we ended it.
What do you think 15-minute cities are? I mean, it's neo-feudalism. It's a new form of slavery. You're taking working men and women, right, working class men and women, and you're locking them in these ghettos where everything that they do is monitored by cameras. They're told they're going to be told when they can leave their neighborhoods, how they can leave their neighborhoods, where they can work. There's going to be all kinds of economic disincentives for them, to do anything else, own their own vehicles, be able to travel 30 miles, commute 30 miles back and forth for a better job, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, we're heading back to it. I mean, we basically are living in an authoritarian state now, right? And, you know, every time you turn around, there's, you know, some form of government control, government, you know, camera, you know, something, you know, controlling every aspect of your life.
How long can they hold on to it though? So say for example, they pulled it off. They got their 15-minute cities. Neo-feudalism becomes a thing. But just like the Soviet Union, they accomplished what they were going for. But how long did it last? It inevitably will fail.
Like so because this is at its core, it's socialism, right? It's always bound to fail because it doesn't follow the fundamental laws of economics. You know, in the same way that the Soviet Union collapsed. If Canada keeps going down the road that we're going down, you know, Canada is going to become Venezuela. Right, and we're gonna have crime in the streets. All of these, all of these, immigrants that are being brought into the country, will be roaming around in gangs. I mean, on and on and on and on. You know, crime through the roof. You know, we're already seeing that in our cities. I mean, our cities are becoming unlivable hellholes. You know, you've been to Hastings Street in Vancouver, downtown Calgary. You've got all these people that are all hunched over, because of the damage they've done to themselves on Trank and these other street drugs that are, literally destroyed their spinal cords. I mean, it's disgusting what our country's becoming under the so-called leadership of all these 15-minute city fanatics.
That's insane.
It completely is. And I mean, I really grieve for, my country, and I grieve for, what's happened, just in the last 8 years under Trudeau. Like they have done so much damage to this country that it's a real question as to how many decades it's going to take for us to recover from it. And I think if he gets reelected, we have no hope.
If Trudeau gets reelected,
if Bill Gates and Gibault have their way, I mean, hell, we could be in the middle of a new ice age in 20 years.
What a stupid idea! What a dumb idea!
I know they want to block out the sun. No, I mean, it's like no, it's apparently it's too warm in Canada, so we better turn down the thermostat because Canadians obviously are too warm.
This crazy circular logic that they keep going through, though, because you just described earlier that they're gonna sequester carbon by running machines that generate carbon to power machines that take the carbon away, and then we're gonna block out the sun. And then have solar panels everywhere. Like, what is
no. The solar panels aren't going to work. So the gibbering Gibault wants to block out the sun so that we'll have to burn more oil and gas and coal to keep warm.
It's stupid.
I mean, that's how crazy all this stuff is, right? But I mean, I think when it comes right down to it, and we have no idea what effect that's going to have on agriculture. Like, if you shorten the Canadian growing season by a month or two. Are we even going to be able to produce food anymore? I mean, if Bill Gates had his way, I mean, he said he wants to reduce global population by 50%. I mean, he's basically a modern Malthusian, and it's not just enough to have these theories. Gates wants to bring this stuff to fruition, and apparently, apparently people aren't dying fast enough for him. So now he wants to block out the sun because that'll do the trick.
Yeah, for people who don't know who Malthus, I think his name was John Malthus. He was a mathematician, came up with a terrible theory that overpopulation was going to ruin the world. It never came true, by the way. It never came true, but there's still followers, a lot of them in the elite camps, that believe his thoughts that the world population is a detrimental thing. The other side of the coin is there's plenty of room for more people. That's at the end of the day where it is.
No, that's it. I mean, in Canada, I mean, Canadians aren't breeding at a replacement rate because nobody can afford to have kids.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the simple fact of the matter. I mean, people's heating bills are now $700, $800, $900 a month. Thanks to Trudeau's carbon tax. And it's not reducing the amount of carbon because people need heat to live in Canada. I mean, it's one of the most basic, it's one of the most basic human needs, and they're taxing it. I mean, Trudeau and Gibault might just as well be taxing the air that we breathe as to tax heat in Canada, which is what they're doing.
Well, they are. Their carbon tax is taxing the air.
No, that's well, no, but what they're actually taxing is our ability to keep warm and our ability to work and our ability to go to work and all of those things that you need for a healthy and vibrant economy. They want to destroy. I mean, getting back to what we were talking about earlier about that whole environmental movement just being a front for communists. I had a friend from Poland, and he said, we did this in Poland 20 years ago. He said, we always referred to all of these climate change people as watermelons. And I said, watermelons? He said, oh yeah. He says, green on the outside, red on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
They're all communists at heart. And I mean, if you look at the policies that Trudeau's pursuing, name one policy that doesn't benefit communist China.
Yeah, none of them do. None of them benefit us. Like, none of them benefit us. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say.
I would argue that every single policy that Trudeau's enacting in and around climate is to the benefit of China and the detriment of Canadians.
Well, absolutely. And here's the thing. So while we're trying to reduce our CO2 and we outlawed using coal for energy, we increased, in the time that Trudeau has been in government, we've increased our exports to China by 300%. More coal goes to China than when he became prime minister. I thought this is a global issue. It's global warming. It's climate change.
No. It's only an existential threat in Canada to Canadians. I mean, there's you got this entire. They live in this fantasy world that they've even sold to the Supreme Court just by going, existential threat. We're all going to die, right? It's all this Chicken Little. I call it Chicken Littleism, right? But. Right, the sky is falling. And I mean, it's this nonsense that somehow or other that anything we do in Canada is going to impact global carbon, right? It's not. The simple fact of the matter is it's not. We could completely shut down every single bit of carbon that we emit tomorrow. We'd all die, of course, right? Of poverty, starvation, freezing to death, all that, right? Leaving all of that aside, even if we did that, even if we killed ourselves at the altar of climate change, right?
Yeah.
It would make one bit of difference to global carbon because India and China would just continue to emit to their heart's content at our expense. And I'm sure China would go, isn't this nice? There's this big empty, country where everybody there, collectively committed climate suicide. So we can now move in and take over all the natural resources and continue burning coal and, natural gas and the rest of it. Boy, weren't those Canadian people stupid, right?
Pretty much.
Like the proverbial lemmings jumping over the cliff. And isn't it nice that they left us this big empty country that we can now extract all the resources from because it was foolish to not do it in the first place?
Essentially. It's always been my theory that if we ever got communism, they got their way, then we would forget about all of this stuff and get right to work. Like they would start utilizing the resources that we have immediately.
I mean, look at the growth of the public sector under Trudeau, right? It's like, we're not creating jobs in the private sector, right? And let's keep them, so we have children under 18 who aren't really part of the workforce. We have an aging population on the other hand. So basically, we take away at least a third of our population, as being not of working age, right? And then of the population in the middle, we're almost pushing a third of Canadians are now employed by some level of government, municipal, federal, or provincial. A third, right? So they claim, bureaucrats claim they pay taxes, but let's look at it from a logical perspective or economic.
Yeah, they're not paying anything.
The government gets the money that they then give back to the government, right? So who's really supporting the whole show? It's that 30% that's left that actually work in private industry or the private sector that create stuff, create real jobs, pay real taxes, because taxes paid by bureaucrats aren't real taxes. No. It's just them the government its money back, right? So there's literally, less than a third of Canadians are supporting 2/3 of the country. And every year Trudeau increases the burden by 2 million, bringing in, immigrants that are quite happy to have that third of working Canadians support them as well.
Yeah, right.
So the question is when all of us simply get crushed to death, under carrying the weight of, 2/3 of the country.
At some point, it's gonna come home to roost, and we're just not gonna be able to pay it anymore. That's the crazy part about it. Listen, you were worried we wouldn't have enough stuff for an hour, and we've gone over. I told you it would happen because that's what happens in these chats.
I really enjoy talking to you. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It really is. And I want to bring you back because everybody in the chat is freaking out. This is like the best chat ever. This is so much truth being told right now. You don't hear enough of this out there. I want to address a couple of super chats that people gave during our chat here. G Meister for $5 says, didn't Hinshaw get $250,000 bonus? Why is she allowed to keep that? That's, yeah, right. She'll keep it, and she won't have to pay that back. Peter Witten with a $2 super chat says, you had me at upright Baldwin in the back, Clyde. I don't know what the reference is there. Light Giver for $10 says, 80 vaccinated doctors said, I can't actually say that on YouTube. Message loud and clear. I heard you. Thanks for the super chat. Steve's Hyde with a $2 super chat. Snowpiercer in real life. I've seen that movie. It's a bad movie, but it's a real situation that could happen. Robert McFallon for $10 says, holy crap, this is your new best guest ever, spitting so much truth. Why is he not running for office? Probably because you probably don't want to run for government. Forget that.
I have too much other stuff on the go. I'm still looking forward to getting a $10 billion judgment against the government of Alberta for crushing every business in this province during the pandemic.
Well, I just hope they settle, because then it won't go drag on for 10 years.
I'm hopeful that they will. And certainly I think Daniel, everybody that's from Alberta that's listening, reach out to your MLAs and reach out to Premier Smith, because they do listen, and tell them that it's, that the government of Alberta needs to settle the business class action lawsuit, because it's completely despicable that the province of Alberta should think that small business people should carry the weight of of all of the pandemic restrictions on their shoulders economically, which were ostensibly for the benefit of society as a whole. So, and from a fairness.
And if you're a business owner, and you want to be a part of this class action, the link is in the chat. I'm going to make sure it's in the description when we republish this video as well. But you can fill this out, and you can become part of this class action lawsuit. It's very, very important that you do.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the way class actions work in Alberta, everybody's deemed to be in unless you opt out. But for any business people in Alberta that suffered economic losses during the pandemic and all the phony public health restrictions, illegal public health restrictions that came in, fill out the form on our website, because we're trying to get a handle on the scope of the losses in the province. I mean, we're right now we're literally pushing $1 billion worth of losses that we're looking at just at this early stage in the process. So the more people that provide us their information and provide, and let us know what their losses were, the stronger we're going to be driving this forward. So, please take a look at that, and please, consider, providing us your information.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your work you're doing for this. Peter Witten with a $5 super chat says, let's go Clyde. Let's get Clyde some more revenue here, folks. Even if it's only a couple of bucks, he's the real deal. Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I also got Robert McFallon for $10 says, it's not about the environment. The Third World War started in 2019. The UN is the enemy of humanity. That's a bold statement. It's true. Robert McFallon also saying for $10, and Hogan, I think you meant Horgan, the destroyer, is on the board of directors at a coal company. Yeah, that's the thing. So they've been increasing the coal going out to China, and our old premier, John Horgan, he had his hands in that one, and he's definitely not suffering because of it. That's the reality of the situation. It's just cronyism, it's corruption, it's gross, it's greasy, and this is the world we live in right now. But the best part about this is that people like yourself are coming out, speaking out boldly about it. People are talking about this. People are becoming more open to speak about these things. And this is how things change. Light Giver, just jumping in with another super chat for $20, says, look up congressional records, January 10th, 1963, A34 and A35. this is a copy of the Communist Handbook. You'll be shocked to see how much has taken place. I'm not aware of this. I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me one bit that is an inaccurate statement. I mean, look, Gibault is so proud of his social, the fact that he's a socialist. He has no problem admitting to it publicly. I mean, they're destroying Canada as we know it, and we all need to rise up and stop it.
Yes.
And enough, right? And I mean, like, if people aren't terrified about the fact that Gibault literally wants to put pollution into the atmosphere, to cool the planet down. This guy can barely ride a bicycle, but we're going to let him decide, how we're going to moderate the temperature for the entire planet and all of humanity and all life on the planet. Like, it's complete insanity. And, people need to be rising up and telling our governments that this kind of foolishness will not be tolerated.
That's right. And I'm encouraged.
At that point, they're trying to kill us all.
Well, yeah, indirectly. And that's the thing. Like, some of them, I think, believe this stuff. I think Gibault actually believes the crap that he says. A lot of the other ones, like the Al Gores and the John Kerrys, I think they just know it's just it's a way to make a check. That's their thing, right?
No, John Kerry, and I think his wife is largely divested of all of her Heinz money, but I think it's less than coincidental that John Kerry has really, really big connections to the processed food industry that would all profit handsomely from being able to add bug paste to everything that they do.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and waterfront property. I always say that you don't listen to what people say. Listen to what people do. It paints a way better picture. If they all have waterfront property and they're talking about oceans rising.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was that said it, but I thought it was great. There was whether it was a merchant banker or whoever it was saying there isn't a single insurance company or bank in the world that's currently refusing mortgages on 25 and 30-year mortgages on oceanfront property, right?
That would be a really bad investment if you actually believe that stuff was going to happen.
I mean, all of our financial institutions still have trillions of dollars in loans outstanding on oceanfront property, so I think it's a pretty good bet still.
All right, Jeff, so stick on the line here. I'm just going to end the stream real quick. I just want to thank everybody for coming out and joining in this chat. It was really eye-opening. A lot of great stuff. Go check out the Substack. We'll make sure that the link's in the description below, as well as the link to the presser for the lawsuit that's taking place. And of course, all those links will be in the description down below. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining tonight and joining and speaking with us.
Yeah, just a quick plug on the Substack. It's Conspiracy Facts with Jeffrey Rath. And it's free. I'm not trying to make money on it. I actually just started doing this for my buddies and friends of mine that think the same way that I do, and we all get a good laugh out of it every week. So if anybody finds found this stream tonight to be the least bit entertaining, check out my Substack. You'll probably find it pretty funny. So anyway, have a good night, and thank you for having me on.
Beautiful. Everybody, we'll see you Monday morning.